Hello there, YouTube. It is Gilbert S. With the Unnamed Game Company. I am here on episode, I don't know anymore. I've lost complete track. It is wonderful Tuesday, likely. A lot of this stuff is pre-recorded, and let's not pretend. This is releasing on a Tuesday. Hopefully, your Tuesday is going well. Anyways, I apologize for the last episode. I might have had a lot of stuttering going on. I don't try to edit any of this stuff. I just release it raw. The way it's going to be. Just sort of deal with it. So I put a call out to our wonderful Twitter, and I said, hey, I'd like to review games. And so a couple of people responded, and one of those is at CRLeg, which is a game designer, an indie game designer. They had wanted me to review one of their other games. I asked about which games I should review, and out of the choices I originally was given, I went for the latter. I'm reviewing a game called Totally Real Human Trick-or-Treaters. As it's written, it was a little bit confusing as to what I was reading at first, because I was like, what am I reading? Sorry. Their name is Chris Legg. Sorry. I was a little confused. I had to kind of read it once or twice because I was like, okay, so I get it. Yeah, this is the trope of three kids in overcoat. And I'm like, oh, that's just great. I have to review this. It took a second, and I was like, what am I reading? Okay. Oh, okay, I get it. You are three creatures in a costume trying to find the great house on the block that gives you the best candy. It's intended to be played with a multitude of people. You're supposed to sort of play in teams. I imagine that this game is played really well with 9 people. I can't imagine getting 9 people for a game together. But there is a nice little co-op role thing for you and 3 friends to play. So I think that's a nice little alternative that was very well thought of to have. So good job on that, Chris. But yeah, I think I was looking at this going well, what is this? And I started going through it, and I was like, and then when I figured it out, it's it's the three kids in an overcoat trying to buy alcohol or something. It's not that, but it's that trope of it's 3 kids in an overcoat trying to buy alcohol and cigarettes. Who would believe it? But it's Halloween, so it is completely and utterly believable. Going through Totally Real Human Trick-or-Treaters, I thought it was pretty interesting. I will read the synopsis here at the beginning. I'm not going to read the rules to you all, and that's not the whole thing, but I will read the sort of first paragraph. And I will do it in my best Halloweeny voice. Everyone has heard of the legend of the house that gives away king-size candy bars on Halloween. This, though, is better. A house that gives away big candy and the candy wrapper. Problem is, the people of this neighborhood won't tell just any random child the location of such a treasure trove. They reserve that info for only their most favored trick-or-treater. You must earn their trust and find the locations. So yeah, it's pretty neat. I just started. I read it. I perused it. And and so yeah, what you're doing in this game is you're playing a creature, and some of the creature choices are you can be a toddler, a raccoon, a dog, a badger, a chicken, a crab, a raven, a squirrel, a chameleon, a opossum, a capybara, or octopus, or there's even an alternative, but they have a special ability, and And what's interesting is that it's the notion that, yes, you're going to play these 3 creatures in a stack, and each player is going to play their own creature, and one creature is supposed to be the top, which is the talker of the group. The middle creature is going to be more of the hands of the group, the tactile thing, and then the third creature is sort of the mover of the group. And I think it's a very interesting and unique concept. I'm not. I mean, I think it's one of those things, like, I would have to play it to understand, because I think, for me, I look at something going like, well, what is the leg supposed to do? I imagine that you have a lot of things you can do with talking and social interaction, but the question would be, what do you do with arms? Legs. Sorry, legs. What would you do with legs? But I think this notion is really cool. And then what you're doing in these creatures is you're wearing a costume. So it takes the trench coat thing to a whole new level. Because could you imagine? You're really just a dog, a chicken, and a crab inside a superhero outfit. I think it's hilarious. It's just great. Or imagine you're let's see here, you're a capybara with a raven and octopus. Dressed up as a witch. What a vampire. I just love the combinations. I don't care what anyone says. Just for this alone, I would just play this game, because I would just love to come up with the weirdest, craziest, insane combinations you can think of, because it's 3 kids in a trench coat. In this instance, you're 3 creatures trying to figure out what, trying to get your reputation up in this neighborhood, and by getting your reputation up in this neighborhood, you, in essence, get to find out how you get to find out if where this thing is. It says here, the player goals of the players are to figure out which house has the big candies and be the first group to reach it. To do this, you must increase your credibility. So your credibility is sort of like a health rating in this game. Certain situations, you may want to change your stack. And each of the creatures also has like a special power, like going back to that really quick, like and so what you'll do is you'll roll a stat. You have a set of stats in this game, which is pretty common for most games these days. Sorry, just trying to remember what it was that I was reading. If the player beats the GM's roll by 5 or more, they automatically succeed at what they are attempting and gain an additional point to the credibility. If they beat the GM's roll by less than 5, the player succeeds, but the credibility stays the same. And if you lose the GM's roll by less than 5, they will succeed, but there is a setback. And then, so you're trying to increase your credibility, so you must try to beat the GM by 5 or more. So you're really going to be playing to your strengths, not your weaknesses. So each set has a number, a modifier. You roll, I believe, you roll a die. I'm not really sure which one. I believe it's a d6. GM rolls a number of dice based on the difficulty of what the player group is attempting. So you're rolling between 1 to 3 dice. They're rolling 1 to 3 dice. If you roll a check for a stat that you have 0 in, you must roll 2 dice and remove the highest roll. So it's pretty fundamental on the dice rolls. You succeed over the GM a certain amount, and you increase your credibility. You are below. If you beat them, you still succeed, but you're not getting better, more credibility. And if you fail, you lose credibility, and you have a starting set of credibility, which of course I believe is on the character sheet, as I was seeing this earlier, or it is somewhere on here, or it is somewhere. But it gets too low. Okay, trying to find it. It takes place in a large neighborhood night. This can be so for those running the game. Maps might help you keep a track. Make sure the players are not placed. So yeah, it's fairly standard as a game. I just think that the notion is really cool. I think there's a it's not a very complex game. It's 2 pages. There's even an accompanying character sheet that allows you to create your characters. I know I'm just sort of flying off the handle here as I review this, but I think it's worth a check. I think it's worth a download. It's worth a check to look. I think the notion of 3 creatures in a trench coat is just amazing. It is also, I believe, like a pay what you want currently on Chris's itch. So if it's something that you're genuinely interested in, I do recommend it. Other than that, and it's nicely laid out. They are recommending you have a little map of a neighborhood. I imagine that a lot of the things that you're going to be doing is you're going to be going house to house, and you're going to be, doing things. I think that I think the things that I question from this, and this is not to so this is a review, but it's also a designer's breakdown. I think the things that I would be wondering about for this game would be, as a GM, is there rules about getting caught? Like, is there ways to make your life, I know we're dealing with credibility, but you are 3 creatures in a trench coat. So I think that's something, you'd really want to play with. And I think that's something that, the idea of being found is a notion that would be nicely explored in this game, that you have to roll not to, be discovered. And I think there's even notions that, your creature should have, a setback. I think if I was looking at this game as a game designer, I think that's the things I really would want to see is if you're going to be 3 rando creatures in a costume, how would you make life it's super cool, but they are 3 rando creatures in a costume. So I would like to know that they could also make their lives harder, like the dog. Would want to get petted or something, or the octopus just sticks to things. Oh, you're walking down the street and the octopus is the legs, and you're like, oh no, I have to walk. Imagine that there could be balancing rules you could have more balancing rules. I think there's a good weights that can be added to this game to make it very interesting. It's simple, and I think that's cool, and I'm not saying that that's nothing wrong with a simple game, but looking at it from a design perspective, I think that there's really cool dynamics that can be played here. There's ways to talk about how do you have 3 creatures walk down the street? How do you have what's a folly for being the parrot in the middle? What's weight disbursements? Is there a difference between a big dog and a chihuahua? Some of these creatures are super heavy. Could you imagine if the stack was okay, you have you've got what's heavy here? A capybara. Capybara is probably the biggest one, maybe a toddler. And if they're at the top and you've got a raven on the bottom, I'm wondering okay, Raven, you're not, are you going to be able to carry all these people? And I think there's a suspension of disbelief. If this is just supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek, let's play this for fun and not really think about those things, then yeah. But I think I think there's a fun thing to discover for this as a game designer, looking at it as a game designer. I think there's some ways to expand on this to make it more intriguing. It's cool. I think the notion is super cool. I think that trying to socially be creatures on Halloween night. I see the point of this. You're socially trying to be creatures on Halloween night. You're 3 babies in a trench coat. And you're trying to get humans to believe you're human. and by making them believe you're human, You get them to trust you, and getting them to trust you, they tell you where the big house is, and then you go to the big house, and then you get all the candy, which is pretty neat. And I think there's a really cool notion. I think I would, if it was me as a designer, I think there would be something I'd want to do a hide check. You have to do a hide check every round or something, or you have to you have to roll when you meet the GM's roll. You have to roll a possible. So there's always got to be a stake in there. I think that's something me personally, if I was looking at this game, that's something I'd like to see. But overall, I think for a 2-page game, for conceptually, design-wise, I think it's a very neat cover. It's very pretty looking. It's the right color schematic. I think Chris did an amazing job for a 2-page game that is free, or pay what you want. If you like what you heard about this game, please check it out. There is links below. You can download it and find Chris at Twitter at CRleg LEGGE. That link is also in the bottom. They did a really great job, and I would be happy to review other games of theirs in the future. Thank you again. Have a good day, y'all. See you on our next episode on Saturday.